Welcome to Nintendo Voice Chat. I'm Jose Otero. This is IGN's Nintendo Show, and coming up on Nintendo Voice Chat, we're talking about games we're playing in terms of Minecraft, NBA Playgrounds, and also Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia, so that's good. Then we're going to follow that up with our reactions to Nintendo's E3 plans for 2017. And finally, we're going to have some questions from you in the question block. Joining me this week, Brian Altano.
Rap.
And such a dignified brap. Did you hear the brap? And the other dignified brapper, Per Schneider.
Guten Tag!
Good. Okay,
there we go. There's the energy.
Places.
There's the energy.
I like it.
We swapped energies.
So they have swapped energies, and a bit of housekeeping, a reminder to make sure that you subscribe to IGN.com on YouTube or to Nintendo Voice Chat on YouTube. We'd love to not only engage with you and keep you up to date on our latest episodes, but engage with you, talk to you in the comments. You'll see us in there, trust me. And so we should get started with games that we're playing. So let's start with, what do you want?
Wait on E3?
We do have to wait on E3.
All right. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, we are going to talk about it. Okay. I'm sorry. I want to start a little low and then pick up. So do you want to talk about Minecraft first, Fire Emblem Echoes, Shadows of Valentia first, or NBA Playgrounds first? I'll let you guys choose.
Are you playing Minecraft?
I am playing Minecraft.
A little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, let's start with that then. Okay, so the Nintendo Switch Edition is out this afternoon, the date of this recording. And this is, so first of all, with this, you're getting the Switch version of the game, which is pretty much fully featured. You have your creative suite, you have your survival mode, you have online multiplayer, you have the battle mode that came out more recently, you have the tumble mini games as well, which is great. You have touchscreen support, which I don't even think the Wii U version
did not have.
Yeah, and you have one that even displays a larger sized world than what the Wii U version was capable of at the time.
Yeah. So it's an upgrade, and it has all the kind of the Mario trimmings and all of that.
The Mario mashup pack, as they call it. Yep. That TM that they have that in there as well, and yeah, this is basically something we all called the minute it showed up on Wii U. We were like, yes, of course. Everyone who is in the comments or on the internet complaining this is a late edition for Nintendo, absolutely, you have every right to point that out. But it is a guarantee it will show up on the next system, and it did within the first 6 months.
Right, and I mean, whether it's late or early or years after it came out, Minecraft is one of the most popular, most beloved games ever made. And the idea of people finding it for the first time today is still so exciting to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It keeps on happening on the other consoles. I mean, the numbers are really good. Every week, this game keeps on selling.
Well, Microsoft paid a lot of money for it, and they're going to keep selling it so they make that money back.
And that's the crazy thing. It's a Microsoft game, and they have not yet kind of clawed it back and said only on PC and Xbox. They're still allowing this on all the different platforms.
Yeah, which is pretty cool that there's in the launch window for the new Nintendo handheld hybrid console is a Microsoft game, which is really cool.
Yeah, published by Microsoft Games.
I love Minecraft. If you've never heard of it, I mean, I'm not even going to waste your time explaining it. It's the information is out there. You can find it. Yeah. But the cool thing about Minecraft that I really, really love this time around is it's a perfect fit for the Switch. It's the kind of game that you want to just play while you're watching TV. You can play for a couple hours on an airplane. I got really into the Vita version, and I got really into the iOS version. I think I even bought it on my Kindle. Like any handheld with a screen, I've played Minecraft on at this point. Yeah. And you can play Minecraft many different ways. There's a survival mode, which you can start from the beginning, build a house out of mud, try to live through the night and fight demons and monsters and stuff like that. Or the creative mode, which lets you jump right in and just build anything you want, fly in the air, live forever, nothing hurts you. Yep. The cool thing about the Switch version specifically is it's got those Mario skins right off the bat, which isn't just a texture pack. They actually built an entire really cool Mario themed world that you can walk around in with giant statues themed on Mario's. There's warp pipes in them that all work within the weird confines of the physics.
Bowser has his own space. You have a sun that's in the shape of the Sunshine logo. You have a lot of the trimmings and little homages here and there. And this was all made by 42J Studios. I believe I'm saying the developer behind the port made these as part of the Nintendo deal. It is wonderfully done. We've talked about it definitely with the Wii U version. I had wished with this port that someone would have said Zelda or Fire Emblem or even Metroid.
I've heard of that game.
Maybe, but we didn't get that, and that's not to say this is soured because of it. But I was hoping for that.
I think this is sort of the play it safe era for third parties on Switch in general. And the fact that we got Minecraft 2-3 months after launch. I mean, the fact that we got one of the biggest games of all time after Breath of the Wild, after Mario Kart. I mean, I personally could have waited on this one for a little while, but the fact that it's out now is really cool.
It's good to get it out there now. Like as a parent, my kids, I think, are at this point where they're over Minecraft and they're playing other games. They played it a ton. First I introduced them to it on console, and then they went right on PC and only played it on PC together. But this version, you can play split screen in tabletop mode. So if you are taking a trip and you're staying at a hotel at night, you have your entertainment with you. There's just a caveat with the controllers, right?
Do you want me or?
Yeah, no, explain it.
So just so you're aware, obviously like any Switch game, it runs in split screen, but because Minecraft is a bit more complicated in terms of you need a look stick, which you don't have a second analog stick on one of those Joy-Con, you cannot play it split Joy-Con. You have to have a second controller or a second set of Joy-Con to really play it that way. And that's something that, I mean, I'm not upset by that. I feel like it is a natural limitation. There is no nub. I mean, you could potentially Nintendo could put a seat stick on there at some point. It would look
tilt.
weird. Or tilt, I guess, to look.
You could.
Maybe. Actually, that's not a terrible suggestion.
Yeah. Probably is a terrible suggestion.
Yeah, the developer was like, what am I doing?
I'm fine bringing along 2 more Joy-Con and a Pro Controller or something. I don't think that's a big deal, but it's just, how cool is that you have this kind of like small box you can bring with you, and you can, your kids can play 3-player Minecraft or 4-player Minecraft on the go.
We saw the same sort of technical limitation issue happen with Lego City Undercover, which had split screen on the go, but required, a Pro Controller or 2 extra Joy-Cons. I think the cool thing with that, though, is like if I wanted to bring my PS4 and 2 controllers on a trip, I'd have to bring our PS4 and 2 controllers. With the Switch, you have your Switch that has the controllers on the side, and you just throw in 2 extra Joy-Cons in your bag or whatever that is.
No TV needed.
No TV needed, which is really cool. And it does 4-player split screen on one Switch screen, which we saw with Mario Kart as well, which, again, we all laughed at that first reveal commercial. We said no one will do that. We are very often finding ourselves doing these things.
There is a commercial going on right now. If you go to our product and engineering team, instead of fixing things, there's always somebody playing Mario Kart exactly on a tiny little screen. Like it's just like
it's interesting too, because the Switch, in some ways, and this is slightly related, has become the console for settling the beef in whatever game you're trying to settle it in, whether it's going to be Smash Brothers in the future, because that's a when, that's not an if. But with Mario Kart, absolutely. Like there's a bunch of racing going on in the office, and there's a lot of, hey, I can take you. Oh yeah? Boof, drop it. Let's go right here. And that's it. So I'm
curious about Street Fighter. That's going to be interesting too.
It will be. And we'll definitely have more to talk about, I think, with that one in the future, because that's coming up. But Minecraft Nintendo Switch Edition should be out today. You should definitely,
$29.99?
I believe, I can double check. I'm pretty sure that's accurate. And of course, the digital version first, physical later. They did the same thing with Wii U.
I mean, I'll be completely frank. Like, it's a little steep for that game, but it's like what you're getting is really great. For someone like me, it's kind of a no-brainer. I'm at the point now where I just keep buying Minecraft over and over. But for maybe you're a parent and your kid wants to play Minecraft, I don't know if like that's a better deal than just handing your kid your phone with the the $7 iOS version or Android.
Yeah, but this one has the built-in co-op. I really like as a parent playing with your kid, you can create together, and I do and then the handheld factor against the console. It's like just like Mario Maker, I just love creating something while watching TV.
And I mean,
that works great.
The marriage of button controls and touchscreen functionality, which the touchscreen stuff is limited, but it lets you switch between your dozens and dozens of different types of blocks and bricks and stuff like that. So I mean, that's cool. I think it's really awesome. I'm really excited to play more.
And from the beginning, the Mario mashup pack was a great idea. I think in my head, I want to believe that there is a world where it makes business sense to sell more. As much as people may not like that idea, but I do think Nintendo is sensitive to letting another developer sort of sell their IP. And I'm sure that part of the reason this deal came together was that Mario got offered up as this big sort of homage piece within Minecraft, which I think was really smart. It was a great play on both sides.
And I forget
so if you don't follow it up, I don't think it's the end of the world, but I do think it would be cool if you did.
I forget the timeline here if the Mario stuff was announced by Mojang before.
No, it was together. Yeah,
before before Microsoft bought them out.
I'm
wondering. I'm wondering what that puts on any sort of future limitations of being like, we want Zelda, we want Metroid. Maybe we'll get Blinks the cat instead.
Oh God, who
Run them
remembers
separately,
that?
and the skin packs have been like pulling from all sorts of franchises
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, and there's also sort of more generic skin packs that are there in the Switch version at launch. There's like a Greek theme and Halloween, and then like a kind of more realistic texture pack, which obviously
darker colors. That's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
it is.
that's
really.
realistic.
Yeah, it's so realistic. All right, so our next game we'll discuss then is Fire Emblem Echoes: Shadows of Valentia. This is for that system called 3DS, which some of you listeners may have said, "Well, I've moved on." Too bad. Here we are, and it's coming out next Friday on May 19th. And we talked a little bit about the DLC pack last week. So, Per, you and I are playing this.
Yeah.
So, this is a return to classic Fire Emblem to an extent.
Super classic,
Okay,
right? It
how
goes
classic?
back to Gaiden, so a game that predates a lot of games that modern Fire Emblem fans will obviously know, like Awakening, and so with it, like you can, it is a little stiffer, right? Like when you're moving units around and like just the way the support systems work, you can tell it's from a different age. But what they've done is they've really upgraded it on the visual side, like the 3D dungeons, for example, the town exploration. And it's not free town exploration. You kind of select points on
A little bit
map.
more like an adventure game.
Yeah, and it's exactly like an adventure game with like characters you can talk to. You can even have some point and click like exploration,
resources that you
find
pick
some
up from
hidden
the
stuff.
ground.
Yeah, it's almost like it took some of the kind of like hidden object stuff, pulled it into this. But like I was really impressed by the 3DS engine that they built for it. When you're running through a dungeon, it runs super smoothly, and you can explore a dungeon. Of course, the moment you run into an enemy, it switches to your kind of classic 2D map view. Hey, look, I dig it. These are great characters. Celica and Alm are really cool, and it's great that a game that otherwise would have been forgotten by at least
and we
American
don't have in
consumers
America.
coming back. Yeah.
No, that's fair. And the stuff with the 3D dungeons, very much you've seen before if you've played Persona 5 or if you've even played, some of the more recent Dragon Quest remakes. Just the idea that you can see the enemy before you engage. And I guess Fire Emblem has always had that, but you're not moving around a space. You're always moving around a map, and you still have the advantage of if you swing first and you land the hit. All the enemies, when the battle starts, will have slight health reduced, which is cool.
Yeah.
And I like that they're taking a classic approach, but still finding neat ways to experiment. And honestly, it raises sort of my expectations. And I know we've talked a little bit about the challenge with Fire Emblem fatigue, with having so many Fire Emblems in recent history, especially when you consider that the 3DS as a platform was kind of the renaissance platform for Fire Emblem, at least for the Western market, right? Like with Fire Emblem on 3DS, it's performing as well or better than what's selling in Japan, which is crazy. There was a time where that was never true.
Yeah.
I want to say the Game Boy Advance era. I almost said the Game Boy. It's a good choice.
That's what they call it in Germany.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance. And so,
Game Boy.
Yeah, so I'm happy to see what this game is presenting, and I'm curious what and how it influences the next game. One thing you didn't mention, the auto advance too with text, I think is really smart. There's a lot of voice work in this game.
Yeah. So you just hit X. Basically, when your character speaks out loud, you just hit X, and it'll automatically advance to the next line of spoken dialogue.
There's a lot of
text, and so you can just let it run like a cutscene, which is really nice. That's
smart.
another. You said it's like a Persona does that.
Persona's
really well.
been doing that for a while.
games have
Shin Megami
done that.
Tensei have done it.
I love that.
Yeah, and the opening is incredibly chatty.
The game in general is
chatty.
very chatty.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a negative, but just that you're not going to just jump right in and dive into your first battle. Like they do set up some story context, who your characters are, who your friends are, the kids you grew up with, like that kind of stuff. It's all the backstory pieces that you sort of expect, but I do wonder how modern Fire Emblem fans, specifically people who just came on board this train with like Fire Emblem Awakening in 2013 or with Fire Emblem Fates more recently even, how they will take to this. Because I think that this is a bit of a separation from what they're expecting. Even Fire Emblem Heroes players, you're going to come to this game, there's no weapon triangle. Like that's how different this game is.
And then it does have this kind of Layton-esque like conversation system and all that, you know, it's an exploration system. Yeah, it is different. I think people who are in it mostly for like the chess game of it, or like Archon if you're into classic action kind of strategy games like that. If you're into that element, I think the chattiness will turn you off a little bit, like just the general kind of adventure game aspect of it. But like anyone who loved the character relations, the storylines in the old ones, I think will feel right at home.
Yeah. So, to an extent, I mean, because there's definitely the support conversations happen on the battlefield. They don't happen separately from that.
Yeah. And the thing I like about this, and I didn't think about it when they announced it, like this whole kind of like Echoes sub-brand. I'm
glad you brought this
up. It almost feels like they get to do something different and then kind of do something like they aren't bound by what they do with the mainline series, because with the mainline you had like this. Remember, you had this city, this town you can customize. You had the relationships you can build between the characters and the marriages and the kids and all that. Like that feels like a game system. When they kind of erase that, there'll be a lot of Fire Emblem fans who are upset. Right? Whereas like this game basically says, oh, that's not us. This is a different game. It goes back to the kind of like classic formula. And I think it's cool because they actually, they're working with new stuff like the explorations.
Yeah, even the level up sound is not the classic da 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 da. It's like, it's very different. And you're just kind of like thrown for a little, wait, what?
So it's Gaiden. I mean, Gaiden, it means side story in Japanese. That's what this game was.
Do you guys feel like Nintendo's doing a good enough job of sort of, levying out these expectations before the fans come into this game?
I think they're definitely trying. I see some effort on trailers. They're using the Treehouse blog for that log, for that as they call it. It's
Treehouse
the big
log?
question. Yeah, that's what they call the Tumblr, where Treehouse sort of posts like stories of related.
I know, it just sounds like they're chopping it down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is kind of sad. Yeah, it is worrisome. I worry that maybe that stuff's not filtering down to the Fire Emblem fan, but then again, the super fan is very much aware this game exists. So we'll see how this plays out. I think it's first week in Japan, though. It did not outsell Fates and didn't perform super off the charts, but that's not an indicator of much.
Is that marketing, or is that like people know, oh, I've played this before, maybe some of the old school fans?
Maybe.
It's interesting to me that,
No, I definitely need to look at the numbers more, sorry.
Yeah, especially now you have this massive, sort of more casual mobile audience coming in that might be checking it out for the first time.
No, definitely. I agree.
Like that seemed to have worked with Pokemon sales last year after Pokemon Go. They had record sales with that franchise in the fall. So I'm interested to see how many of like the new kind of, I just played my first Fire Emblem on mobile, people come over to the 3DS game and give it a shot.
Yeah, no, and Pokemon, though, as a brand at least, had way more widespread appeal, right? Like, I mean, just the idea of the next generation of Pokemon, whenever that comes up, well, this is it. I'm coming back to 3. Like, they come in troves. They come from all corners of the earth. And that's pretty much how it goes.
Is it sad that my biggest takeaway so far is that I cannot wait for a Switch version of Fire Emblem?
No,
because
I'm
like
excited.
seeing what they squeeze out of this, like out of the 3DS visually, and like the experiments with, going back to old systems and introducing new ones, I'm like, all right, what is Switch gonna be like?
Dude.
No,
are they gonna do something with split screen?
There was that era where we started getting Blu-ray players and we still had a couple DVDs sitting around, and you're like, when is this gonna come out on Blu-ray? And you still watch the movie and it's still really fun, but that's kind of where we are with a lot of 3DS
That's a good analogy.
Right now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
We'll get there,
Yeah, I'm really excited, especially from an asset perspective. I agree. Like, what is it going to look like? What is it going to sound like? Is it going to have like those incredible cutscenes they put the effort into with like Awakening and Fates, where they were like 3D models?
Not quite as good, yeah.
Yeah, these are more like traditional old school animation. It kind of fits with the vibe of a classic game, but it makes you wonder too, like, did you go with this because it was cheaper and you're putting all that towards something else?
I'm wondering if they rendered the cutscenes and then they ran out of space or didn't want to make the cartridge bigger and just kind of did some cutscenes
of all the VO?
slideshows. Like they do these slideshows where you see a character like run into the distance like this, like disappearing, like chop, 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 and you're like, that it looks too good. Like the rendering looks too good. I wonder if they brought it back down or if they always started with that. There's some full motion stuff,
right?
And the amount of voice is just crazy.
It is a lot of chat. Yeah, I've only met one villager who didn't have a voice so far.
Was that designed that way, or
I think they just forgot him.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like Breath of the Wild was sort of the same way. Nintendo is kind of sticking one pinky toe into that entire cinematic world of like how to tell a game with more cutscenes and FMV stuff and full voice acting.
Good voice acting.
Yeah, good voice
Fire
acting,
Emblem
right?
here, yeah.
And like having certain characters have so much say, and then you go to the next cutscene and no one's talking. Like, I think they're getting there little by little. So
absolutely
baby steps.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about NBA Playgrounds then. So this is the sort of, at least from appearances, a return to arcadey 2-on-2 basketball.
Yes.
And so I'm really curious about this because I am a big NBA Jam fan. I am a huge NBA Street fan back when that was really good. In fact, this morning, I saw my copy of NBA Street Volume 3, the one that had the Mario crossover in it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Remember that? Yeah, I saw that there. And my worry with this game is that it looks like a generic knockoff of it, even though there's some attention to detail in this thing.
Sure.
So talk to me.
So I put a couple hours into this game flying over the weekend, which is pretty cool because it gave me an opportunity to see what this looks like on handheld mode. And
He's flying.
He's on fire.
I'm downtown.
The weird thing about this game right off the bat is that if you remember playing Snake Pass when it first launched on the Switch, it had this weird sort of blur to it, like a Gaussian blur almost. It had
in portable mode.
In portable mode, where it had kind of like, it just felt like there was like Vaseline on the screen.
Yeah.
It's a weird smear to it.
Somebody turn on the colors.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing you didn't really notice until you jumped over back to like Breath of the Wild or you play some Mario Kart, and you're like, these are very crisp games. So it's got kind of that thing going for it. Now, this is a game that just launched, and they're going to be working on it and patching it. They said from the jump that, no pun intended, that they're going...
Too late.
Don't. that they're going to...
You did it.
I did it. I walked right into that.
Yeah. He's not the jump.
I'm not the jump. So they said that they're going to add some more functionality like online stuff and this and that. But gameplay wise, I'm kind of torn on this game because it's just fun enough that it feels like a quick, casual arcade pick up and play basketball game. I'm not the biggest sports guy, but I love that like SNES, N64 era.
Exaggerated,
era.
wacky, crazy. He's on fire.
Yeah, like I used to love NHL Hits and Blitz and Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey and Space Jam, not Space Jam, and NBA Jam. I don't know. Did they make a Space Jam video game?
I think they did. I'm pretty sure there was a Super Nintendo cartridge I'm picturing in my head.
And so this game kind of feels like that. It's very pick up and play. It's very easy to jump into. The characters are they have like that DK big head mode thing going on.
Caricatures, yeah, super.
And the way you collect characters in this game, each team in the game only has a couple of characters. There's this like trading card pack system. So when you launch the game, they give you a bunch of trading card packs that you open up, and there's this animation of you opening them, which is pretty cool. It's like very 90s, right? Like being a kid growing up.
Yeah.
And you get a couple cards and you start to unlock players, and then you start playing, and it's not really like, the Nets versus the Lakers or something like that. It's kind of like, okay, so you get one guy from one team, one guy from another team to fight one guy from one team versus one guy from
your dream team, your pair, your best cards.
Your dream team of the cards you have.
Yeah, sure.
Which is sometimes like, Jason Kidd and a guy you've never heard of, and sometimes it's like, two people that you've never heard of versus one guy you've never heard of and somebody you have.
Yeah.
So my main concern with this game is that it's both too simple and too complicated. It feels very arcadey and very pick up and play, and that's really fun. The 2-on-2 thing is great. It moves quickly. Passing and stuff like that is super easy. Elbowing people, getting the ball back, and going up and down the court is fun.
It runs nicely.
But when it's time to do like special moves, I feel like it's overly complicated to the point where you have to be sort of exactly precise with your timing. And that's kind of the thing that the game runs into all the time is sort of, it wants to be very robust and kind of simulation-y, but it also wants to be quick pick up and play. And for the time you'll spend in the menus sort of like tweaking certain things and figuring out what you want to do next, there's also 45-second load times, which you're like, I want to jump into a game of basketball. I should be able to just hit a button and get in there. Like Mario Kart shouldn't have way shorter load times in a game like this, which is, I believe, taxing the game way.
No, it doesn't. It definitely doesn't. Have as
it's
much
not optimized.
Yeah. That said, I feel
the developers said though that they're going to patch that.
Yeah,
stuff
that's the thing, and that's exactly it, right? I was going to say, like, I think this game will grow and get to a point where it's much more fun. It's right now still a cheap pick up and play game. Like, it's not $50. I believe it's only like $20 or $30, right?
Yeah, I believe it's $20. It was $19.99 this morning.
Yeah, which is awesome. And I want to see more stuff like this on the Switch because we don't have any like proper sports simulation games coming outside of FIFA and NBA eventually. But right now, this is the first sports game on Switch.
Oh yeah, that's right.
No, it's true.
And everyone has giant heads, so it's like kind of goofy.
Yeah.
But so I think there's a fun game in there. I want to see how it sort of grows. I want to see them tweak a couple of things. I want to see them be a little more lenient on just the finite level of perfection it takes to totally nail something, because you should be able to just light that net on fire whenever you want, right?
Yeah, and it's a shame Switch missed the NBA Jam revival, even like On Fire Edition, which I think was the last time we saw NBA Jam.
Yeah.
It was PS3, Xbox 360,
and Wii.
And Wii. Yeah, it started on Wii, in fact, and then sort of made its way into HD. But I don't think it's available on PS4 or 360. Like there's a license and there's a brand that like for a system like Switch that is definitely appealing to sort of casual and hardcore market. Like you can loop a lot of lapsed gamers with bringing back NBA Jam and just having to right there and then like one-on-one basketball. Like that's
the problem
amazing.
is always license extensions with sports, right? Like I mean, it'd be awesome if they could just flip that game and put it on the Switch, but they obviously have to pay
and
for the license
cost a lot of money, and you got to go through the Players Association.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. I didn't even think about that. Did you play a 2-player? Did you?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's fun, but it's like, with two people who are just sort of casually jumping in, same kind of issues. My biggest concern, Jose, you and I were talking about this before, is basketball is a incredibly score-driven video game, or a game in general. Yeah. Hockey, you could watch a hockey game for 3 hours and it's like 1-0 at the end, and in your head it's 1-0.
Or soccer,
yeah. These are very long, low-scoring games. Basketball games end like 140 to
in some cases,
42. Sometimes
it could be like 101 to something
like 80 to 86, 83.
Totally.
You're constantly worried about how sort of specific that score range is between you and your opponent. And this game does not show you the score of the game you're playing until you run by the scoreboard in the center of the court. And that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
And maybe it gets better with more courts.
There's no overlay to be super specific, right? Yes. There's no overlay on screen that's showing you and updating the score constantly. Yeah. You have to kind of use background elements to keep up, which is like, wait, what? Like, what is this? Like, why?
So, I mean, you do run by that scoreboard a lot, and you get used to it, but it's not. I think they need a better solution. It's a real quick lower third or upper corner overlay that just tells you the story of what's happening.
Well, I hope Saber's committed to keeping sort of updating this game, because I feel like this is the first NBA anything that I've had some interest in.
Me too.
I feel like at least for the 2K series, I've kind of shied away from The Sims and wanted a bit more of the arcadey. Like I miss, especially there was an era in like with the sim games where they were trying arcadey ideas. Like I'll never forget when EA had in NBA Live, there was a dunk contest. Yeah. It was super freaking hard to do the dunks because you have to do like these Street Fighter-esque combinations and like spin the analog 2 times. But you can do some crazy stuff. And I remember just me and buddies like just losing our minds trying to see who can top this. And that's so much fun, again, for a system that you can probably play anywhere. So I hope someone, if it isn't Saber and NBA Playground, someone is looking at this and is willing to pick up the ball in the right way.
I mean, arcade sports games had a little bit of a revival when like Mario Strikers came out too, like when Nintendo tried their luck at it too. Then tried to do every sports under, on the planet, and like a lot of them failed. And I feel like, a smart targeted approach to some of those key sports would be really awesome.
It would.
Blitz ruled arcades for so long. Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
On the NFL side.
We have a Blitz arcade cabinet here at IGN.
Yep. Still running.
All right, so then let's move on to topic number 2. And this one will be specifically focused on our reactions to Nintendo's E3 2017 plans. So this morning, Nintendo came out and made the following statements. Basically, we've seen this playbook before, but I'll quickly summarize before we give our immediate feedback. Nintendo's E3 activities will kick off Tuesday, June 13th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12 p.m. Eastern time. And they will have a video presentation called Nintendo Spotlight E3 2017. This presentation will offer more details about Super Mario Odyssey and other Nintendo Switch games with the focus on games launching in 2017. Reminder for folks, if you're watching this, PSA for you, you can watch all of this on IGN.com. We're also going to be on YouTube.com/IGN, and we start at 8:30 in the morning of Pacific time on June 13th, or that is 11:30 if you are on the East Coast, 4:30 p.m. if you're in British Standard Time, and 2 p.m. on Saturday for the Aussies. Second thing in their announcement, Nintendo Treehouse Live will continue to showcase and live stream upcoming Nintendo Switch and 3DS games. And then finally, there are 2 live tournaments happening. One is for the 2017 Splatoon 2 World Inkling Invitational, which is happening on June 13th. And then, which is the first international Splatoon tournament. And then finally, June 14th, you'll have an ARMS tournament as well. So immediate reaction right here. What do you guys think of these plans?
Well, they haven't announced a whole lot of stuff. Obviously, E3 is about learning about new games, and they're not going to tell you anything exciting and surprising in an announcement like that. I mean, it sounds like a repeat of last year's plan.
Or the year before. Last year was Zelda.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Last year had some of it with live.
That's right.
Treehouse Live.
I forgot. Last year was one Hyrule Playground. Yeah. So it sounds like a repeat of the kind of the digital event approach, rebranded with a new name.
Yes.
Spotlight.
Yeah.
Digital event sounds very stark. So I think it's a smart idea to replace that. The only, look, I want to know more, right? Like ARMS comes out like a week after E3
that
or something.
Friday it comes out.
And it's like, I get that they're doing a tournament there, and it's kind of like the last hurrah for that game before it comes out. But like, I would love it much more if they announced a new Smash Brothers or something at E3 and then did a tournament for that, like a real surprise like that. They're not going to tell us right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, and actually, to push back on that a little further, I think that if you do that, you're sending ARMS out to what? Like to do what in the marketplace? You know what I mean?
Arms flail. What do you do with your arms?
Yeah, you're basically sending it out to do nothing, like at retail wise, because now you've shifted all the excitement from fighting communities to Smash. I just think that might.
Yeah, I also think
just to say,
but it wouldn't come out like a week later, right?
No,
like if
and that's why Smash could or could not show up at E3 in my book.
I mean, I don't think they need Smash Brothers right now. They just don't. Like, they will eventually. I would love it. I would love to see that there. But right now, like, I think Jose's correct. They're focusing on the games they just launched. They're focusing on ARMS. Reading the press release from them this morning had me concerned for a bit, because I kept reading, we were focusing on the Switch games launching in 2017. But then halfway through the press release, they go, the future of the Switch and 3DS and beyond and all that. So that got me excited, because E3 is strange. I'm constantly torn between, like, show me the games that we're playing in the next 6 months. With Nintendo, they're generally pretty good at that, aside from Zelda, which got delayed. Yep. But I also want a couple of those boat there's one more surprise type of thing. But they're really going into E3 in a great place, considering last year where we went into E3, they said, we're not talking about Switch, or NX. They said, we're not showing you anything but Zelda. They said, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. They told us all the things they're not doing, and the one thing they were. And it kind of made our jobs weird, and the fans as well, because your expectations immediately are like, okay, well, now I know what's not going to happen.
We called it the E3 nightmare. Let's just be fair, right? Like, from the beginning, we were like, this is not how any company typically approaches this. This seems either desperation because it's the only thing they have, or it's that good.
Yeah.
It ended up being both, really.
Right. Well, that was a really bad year for the Wii U, and it was also the start of the decline of the 3DS. And so, it reflected that they really weren't pushing a lot of games for those platforms.
No, it felt like like you run in one of your friends who hasn't worked in a couple of years.
But then Zelda was so cool.
But this year your friend's doing awesome. Like, this year your friend... Okay, so Nintendo Switch is selling incredibly well. It's really popular. Yep. Just the mind share around it is huge. The optimism and positivity is there for the system.
Absolutely. People like it.
People love it. Zelda was great. Mario Kart people are obsessed with. There's going to be a bunch of games launching between then and then. Splatoon comes right after E3. So really, the idea of being like, well, what can they possibly do to top that? Mario Odyssey. Like, at the very least, we get footage and gameplay, and we get to go hands-on.
Find out what's up with the hat and the eyes.
With the first sandbox, and they're calling it that, the first sandbox Mario game since Sunshine and 64.
I mean, that gets me super excited, just coming off Breath of the Wild and what they call it a sandbox, but like, that game does a lot more than most sandbox games do, right?
Yeah, and in a very subtle and smart way.
But the nice thing about the announcement is there was a chance that it could have come out and said, last year was so awesome for Zelda, we're going to do Mario.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they would have only focused on Mario this year, and they're clearly not going to do that. It's going to be more like the traditional E3, where they're saying, here are the games that are coming now, and here's some things at the future. And I bet they will announce a Smash Brothers Deluxe Edition. Like, they've got their Mario Kart Deluxe Edition out. Their approach is validated. It's selling, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, it is. And we're going to get to that.
They want to. They have Splatoon coming out, another online heavy game. And I think they want to build an online community of people who keep playing and are playing often. And there may be a gap later this year where you have a primarily single player driven game like Mario coming out.
Or like the worst kept secret in Ubisoft history in this whole Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle thing that everyone's talking about because everything leaks.
So that's why I think it is, there will be some people complaining saying it's cheesy to have multiple deluxe releases, but this is a game that people play online for a very long time and they want to make sure that franchise doesn't go away.
Yeah, I mean, you call it cheesy all you want. I lamented when we first heard about all the Wii U ports coming to Switch, and I was like, oh, they're too expensive, this and this. I got Mario Kart on day one.
And you love it.
Wait. I love it. Yeah. It's selling millions. People are playing it. They're excited about it for the first time. Yeah. They're re-excited about it if they played it already. Like, I was sitting there on this show being like, I'm kind of pissed off that everything's unlocked already. I still have put like 20, 30 hours into that game. Yeah. So, I mean, something like Smash Brothers, it's a fantastic game that they put on a system that not a lot of people had. Like, it makes perfect sense to go through, mine all that. I mean, throw Wind Waker HD out there eventually. That one, I think they'll take their time on.
Sure, more people bought the 3DS edition than the console version, right? Yeah. So there are lots more people who did not experience the full kind of high def game.
Yeah. So I do want to weigh in with some thoughts. For me, first of all, it makes sense to focus on games launching in 2017 only because Nintendo has pretty much trained its audience that they can pull an announcement whenever they want via Nintendo Direct. So if Smash Brothers doesn't show up at E3, and I have a lot of faith, at least looking at how they want ARMS to succeed or at least have a chance, I think you can sit on Smash only because you can pull that card in September or in December when you do another Direct and say to people, 2018, you're getting Smash Brothers, and here's everything you're going to get, blah, 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 and people will lose it for valid reasons. So it's just a reminder to me that E3 is not where Nintendo places all of its bets or all of its cards, and instead tries to sell you the cards they already told you about, right? Which I disagree with it a little bit, too, because I want excitement. I want a Metroid announcement. I want, I'm not a big fan of show me something this year and then it disappears for 3 years. Like that happened with Zelda, unfortunately. Those guys wanted it to come out in E3 2015. I think they believed that they can do it. They didn't, right? And so it got pushed and it got pushed. But to me, there is nothing more like a hype balloon that gets a little on my nerves when it's E3 number 2 or E3 number 3. And even if it still looks gorgeous, you're still just showing it to me and it's not anywhere within reach. That annoys me a little bit too.
That's one of my biggest pet peeves, Host and Beyond covering PlayStation stuff is that Sony is really, really good at being like, look at all this. And then when you pull back a little bit, you're like, well, that doesn't have a release date. That's just the logo. That's a Kickstarter.
But it still works. And I feel like though, when you have a new system out like the Switch, you can't just tell the now story. Like I hear you, they might do that.
And I'm not saying they should only tell the now story. I do want them to say things about the future.
They might do that, but I think now they have to tell it's not a Wii U story because the Wii U, people were burnt by that machine because it did not have a long lifespan. It was gone prematurely, right?
But it also could be the victim of, at least internally at Nintendo, switching gears to say, okay, this is life support for this system for the next 2 years while we really ramp up what this new thing is going to be. And you need developers to do that, right?
Yeah, and that's why I'm hoping that there's more in the works. Like we keep on always saying, retro. By the way, stop tweeting at retro. That's not prime rib.
And it's annoying.
It's brisket and sausages.
So more thoughts. Treehouse Live is going to continue to be their way to showcase their games the way they want to, and they're doing that again. I expect the first thing, and we're going to have our predictions episode clearly, but I expect the first thing to be Mario Odyssey, unless there is a bigger story than that for them to tell, a bigger narrative game surprise announcement, which I do think there will be one. Yeah. I do think there will be a surprise Switch and a surprise 3DS game, and I think that the surprise Switch game will not be the Ubisoft poorly kept secret that is out there today.
Right.
I think it can and should and will be something else because the people planning this thing, I just don't think that makes sense.
Animal Crossing.
I mean, it has a mobile game coming out this year. You would think that they're trying to time those two things together.
To me, that's the one, right? Yeah. That's the game that's like hardcore users love it, casual users love it. It's perfect as a console game. It's perfect as a handheld game. Switches both. They had that weird channel on Wii U or whatever it was that had the HD Animal Crossing.
I know. We're like, ooh, they have the assets.
Like, what are you going to do with those animals?
To Wii U.
So that'd be great. And I really hope we get to see some of the Breath of the Wild season Game Pass expansion stuff.
Yeah, maybe, or you get a second bump when you pull it later. But it is listed as summer, so that's a fair assessment.
That's a
and
good one.
finally, I'm a big fan of live tournaments. I especially excited to see Splatoon 2 out in the wild and being played by an international squad. I mean, U.S., Japan, Europe, and Australia, New Zealand will be represented in this tournament. That's cool to me.
That's
like
awesome.
I love that stuff. And it's definitely Nintendo trying to reach out to the competitive scenes, to the younger gamers, to the people who like love watching skill-based play. And I think that Splatoon 2, the World Inkling Invitational, and ARMS potentially have that. I saw an ARMS tournament last weekend, actually, 2 weekends ago,
like
in Japan.
All, like with their arms and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And it was exciting. I had a good time watching it. I was also very jealous because the hoodies they had were incredible. Like Team Nintendo had like these really good-looking ARMS like color-based hoodies.
Wait, could you drop them and they would like go 20 feet long?
No, that's your pipe dream.
$1 billion merchandise idea.
Yeah, no, don't get there.
Creeps me out, man.
No, it's fun to watch, and I think that game's going to
arms.
surprise people because it's deeper than they expect. I think the big barrier for us will be, is motion control good enough for a fighting game to stay competitive? Because in a fighting game, when you make an execution error and it's a button press, I don't know, there's something that you're okay with because you mistimed it. If it's a gesture that you made and it didn't register properly, that's very different because the way gesture controls work is very different. So I'm really, really eager to see how this plays out.
I can't imagine that game has any chance in the competitive circuit. Like I think it might be a really, really fun multiplayer game. It's just like, I mean, like the reason why we're talking about like LAN adapters and all that kind of stuff and why that's exciting news is that we are expecting, like when you play something competitively, everything's got to be fast and everything's got to work when you hit it. And I've never encountered a motion control game where it always works.
Yeah, but right? I would challenge that with that the fighting game community is very unpredictable. If you would have told someone 13, 14, 15 years ago that Melee would still be a tournament game that has more interest in it than Smash Wii U, you would have said no way, or that Counter-Strike continues to live on.
I disagree. I think those games stick around. I mean, like StarCraft was famously stuck around for a decade in the competitive circuit, and then
but that was mostly overseas.
And
wasn't
then
that?
obviously huge in Korea, but like then when something is off with the successor, it's gone, right? Like it gets wiped out. And my worry is that a game like ARMS is just a little bit too far into the casual realm.
It's hard. I think it's hard to make a decision yet whether or not it plays out. It's
hard for me. I just
we don't. I feel like we don't know enough yet. But I think that one thing we're missing here is that for this game to really take off, the running theme with Street Fighter and Smash Brothers and Overwatch is that people really gravitate towards the characters. If you love the characters, the game has to be technically sound as a fighting game or a shooting game, but to really, really latch on, you're going to need to love those characters. And so far, the character designs have been really cool, and we don't know enough about them so far, but I think that if people latch onto them or grab onto them with their arms, then it'll work well.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because I think that's the other thing, but I think we're at an impasse because it is going to boil down to how good are those motion controls, and do they work in every case at all times, and you don't feel like you got cheated by them.
I want to say real quick, the Splatoon tournament and live gameplay and getting fans together from all over the world has rapidly become one of my favorite parts of E3, because I think that E3 is, to be totally honest, it's an incredibly business-driven show now. It's an incredibly cynical, snark-driven show from the perspective of the audience. And one of my fondest,
even from the press a little bit.
The press too, yeah. I mean, considering me as press and audience, and I'm guilty of it as well. Yeah. But one of my favorite E3 memories of all time was in our war room 2 years ago, watching them play Mario Maker live. And there were 100 people in this room looking at this TV, and IGN is just mesmerized, and we're watching, and we're cheering, and we're clapping, and we're watching this. The idea of people all over the world coming together to celebrate how fun it is to play a video game together is something I think we all forget, and something I think E3 forgets. So I
agree, and I think ARMS will definitely be good for that. It'll be fun and funny to watch, right? Yeah. People playing, and the game looks really charming.
Yeah.
I'm more reacting on kind of like, does it have legs beyond, a little showcase that celebrates?
Does it have legs? You can't start a sentence with "does it have legs?"
That's a great headline. Does ARMS have legs?
That's the subhead. No, but I think that I'm very pleased that Nintendo continues to bring that back, even though this plan is predictable. We saw it in 2014, and we saw it in 2015. You've just rebranded for the most part what at least the live show is, and you're doing 2 tournaments this time, right? Whereas one year you had the Nintendo World Championship, and then a year before that you had the Smash Invitational. But those were still fun events to watch. They were still very smart, and apparently I think they're happening. I don't think they've announced where it will happen, whether it's at their booth or at a theater or something. I'm not entirely sure, so I hope I didn't fumble that. But I'm still glad it exists and that the audience will be there to watch it.
But it's predictable because they're announcing the things that you need to make plans for, right? Like they're announcing we're going to stream something, so you can watch us at this time, and we're having tournaments, so make sure to come and all that. They also believe in the mantra of inform and delight, right? Like they've always had surprises, things that you didn't count on, and they will never announce that in advance.
Yeah. So then my last question on this segment before we move on is, why set expectations this way? What is it about E3 and specifically Nintendo? And I feel like they're the only company that I know that goes out of their way to kind of tell you in a press release, we're only talking about 2017 games. And they're very upfront about that. Is it because of the E3 hype balloon and just how folks do get carried away?
Does it say that in there? Does it say explicitly 2017?
I will read it as written. This presentation will offer more details about Super Mario Odyssey and other Nintendo Switch games, with a focus on games launching in 2017. Now, a focus on, by the way, does not mean only, and we've been dancing around that, but that's 100% true, right? There was going to be a focus on the last Direct, on Splatoon and ARMS, and we got a bunch of 3DS games that we were all like, holy cow. And all this other stuff, and there'll be Amiibo, there'll be other discussions, but why set expectations that way?
Because most of the gameplay you're going to see is going to be from the games coming out this year, and I think they want to make sure that that you're not disappointed that, by the all I got was a trailer thing. I mean, there has to be a trailer of a big 2018 game. Like, you need to tell the story that this console is going to last. But, that's not going to be your 10-minute gameplay demo or something that has a lot of arms.
Yeah, or legs. I'm with you on that. I think to answer your question, the reason Nintendo, more than anyone else, has to set these expectations is because us, as their fans, are completely insane in the best way possible. Because you give us you wear a pin with a Metroid on it, and we're wild speculation for 5 years. There's a guy in the background that looks like Cranky Kong. We're like, oh my God, they're remaking. Like,
that's just an old man.
This is just an old man. Sorry. That's all it is.
He's worked with the company for 20 years.
It's important to have that, right? Because I think otherwise we go wild and with speculation, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's good to sort of be like, okay, so we can still have wild speculation, but it's within these parameters.
All right.
I actually appreciate that. Like, I like being surprised. I hate being let down. And I think everybody feels that way, right? Like, knowing that the focus is 2017 games, anything that goes beyond that is going to be a surprise. And it's going to be nice and welcome.
And still awesome. Being a reminder that they can pull the trigger on a game announcement when they feel like it, with a Direct in September, December, whenever the next one comes around. You know that there is the potential of, holy cow, Smash Brothers or Cloud and Smash or Majora's Mask 3DS, which we all thought would happen forever, and it finally did. Like, I can just think back in my career here where we sat around saying, this game didn't show up, and then at some point it will or it does, and you're excited and you're still happy.
I think that's a really fascinating thing about Nintendo specifically, is that they do have these micro E3s all throughout the year, and it sort of alleviates the pressure at E3 to make these big 5-year-long plans for the way they're going to move and evolve through the industry and all the games they're going to announce. Because like 3 months later, they could be like, oh, by the way, here's an hour on Animal Crossing.
I think for hardcore kind of core console gamers, the only missed opportunity is that when somebody, during the week of E3, whether you're watching all the content or not, like, there's a tremendous amount of chatter on social, on IGN, on YouTube, everywhere you go, right? Where people will say, man, I gotta get a PS4 because The Last of Us 2 is coming out. That was my favorite game on the last console. Or you'll say, I have to get a Switch because Mario looks so great. And I think that's where there is sometimes a missed opportunity where a lapsed Nintendo gamer will say, well, I'm not gonna get a Switch yet because, there's no F-Zero on the horizon, or there's no 1080 snowboarding, or no Metroid. And I think E3 is the time where you could build that expectation that no, you're gonna get all those games,
Right,
even if you just show a logo like Sony does with Spider-Man or something. You know, like you get this sense as like, okay, I have limited amounts of resources and money to spend this year. I'm going to get a Switch this Christmas because look at everything that's coming for it.
Yeah, but that's who they're trying to sell to with the games that they choose. Sorry.
No, and you're correct. And you have to future-proof it a little bit. And we are, I mentioned the really strong Switch sales right now. We are in a bit of a honeymoon phase, and we don't know how many of those are just that core group of Nintendo fans that buy almost everything. I mean, the Wii U was selling pretty well at this point in its life cycle. Yep. It tanked eventually, pretty quickly. But
the sentiment was much more negative. Like when after the Wii U came out, I heard so much more kind of like from owners, this and that, and what's the future of the machine. And we're here with Switch. Like if you go into our comments, you'll see how many people who have a Switch will say it's awesome, and the negativity is mostly from people who don't own one. If you disagree, by the way, leave us a comment in the on IGN on the show or on our YouTube channel on the show, and just kind of like if you were a Switch owner, you're disappointed, let us know why.
Yeah, I think the question that Nintendo has to be asking themselves right now is like, who is going to continue to buy the Switch after the hardcore have already done it, and the people who are into it right now. Like, if you haven't bought a Switch yet, and you're asking yourself like, what will it take for me to get that? Nintendo's probably sitting there being like, well, how do we get that person over here? Like, what game do we have to announce to bring them over?
I think the thing, too, in this discussion that we haven't done is give these guys some credit for what the first year of software looks like.
It's awesome.
Because if you think about your typical first-year release, which, granted, would have more games on day of sale, but also then slows down significantly. So far, at least, we've seen a trickle of game to game to game, but more specifically, the first party stuff has been or has the potential to be strong. Yeah. You have your Breath of the Wild, which is the killer app that a game like that with a console launch has not been seen in a very long time.
Probably never will.
Following that up with a port of your best Mario Kart game, which blows the pants off of. I mean, what happened to the mascot kart racer? Nintendo still owns that category, and it is very much the only thing that game shows is that your multiplayer is not together yet. That's the only mistake you made there. You're going on to ARMS, which is a new IP. 1-2 Switch was in there, by the way. It was a weird casual play. It didn't hit with us. It seems to still be on the road to sell 1 million units, which is not a terrible sign for them, despite it not hitting with the crowd that watches or listens to IGN. Then you got Splatoon in July. Then you've got Xenoblade somewhere in there. Then you've got this Ubisoft game somewhere in there that no one can shut up about.
Right.
And then you've got Mario Odyssey. And there's probably one more. Let's not forget Fire Emblem Warriors is this year. Yep. That's another thing that we're getting that we completely forgot about.
It's been roughly every 6 to 8 weeks you get a brand new kind of first party shape.
Diverse genres, smart plays, cool stuff. For me, it sets the expectation, and we're going to talk about this at some point on the show in the future because we should move on. Just what does year 2 look like, and when do you start touting that horn? Because it doesn't sound like you're really going to do that at E3.
Well, it's why I'd like E3 to start to tell the story of how third parties will continue to
you don't want to know
or begin to do some of the heavy lifting on the platform. Third parties are sort of like when we got Minecraft, we got cool stuff like Snake Pass, Mr. Shifty, like a lot of cool little indie games and stuff like that. I want to get more sort of let's see the Skyrims, let's see the NBAs, let's see the Assassin's Creed.
Other games coming out this year. That's right.
Because I mean, since we last spoke with all this stuff in the last couple of weeks, we've gotten new announcements on Call of Duty and Battlefront, and there's new leaks in Assassin's Creed Egypt or whatever it is, and it seems to be kind of quiet on the Switch front for many.
I don't think we'll see the games that really push the graphical envelope.
Right. I agree.
But and that's understandable. Like Assassin's Creed is going to be a pretty resource intensive game. But it's the Hearthstones of this world where I'm like, Nintendo, you gotta work to get these these games that people still talk about after launch, like months and months after launch, and are being played perpetually on this platform. And they've been able to do that with like Isaac and games that people still play.
And Minecraft.
When you go into your Nintendo Switch menu or your shop, which like quick PSA, you can now add a credit card to, and it now lists every game released in order of release for instead of just best selling and new releases. So it's got everything in there. It's This is cool to see them evolve that. It's really cool. I check every week and I see the top 10, and it's really awesome to see. You've got like Zelda's been bumped down a little bit.
Wii was up there, man.
Wio's up there. Mario
Kart's
Kart's up there, obviously. But then you also see stuff like Binding of Isaac. You see stuff like Snake Pass. You know,
What's that SNK shooter that came out? Like,
it's one of the Neo Geo classics.
Blazing Star, I believe. It's really fun.
I think it is.
Did you buy it? It's good. Yeah.
Did you see that new game in Japan that it's sort of a versus 2-player rhythm action fighting game?
No.
Like, so you're shooting one of 3 orbs at another player, and they have to respond and shoot them down. But I think there's a rhythm aspect to it.
Oh, cool.
It's really freaking weird.
Only in the Japanese eShop?
So far, I've only seen it in the Japanese eShop. I didn't touch the Europe one this morning, but I was like, "What is this game?"
Is there a demo?
I didn't see one.
Interesting.
I didn't check for one though. I just kind of peeked and was like, "What the heck is this?"
Yeah, because friendly
Sometimes
reminder.
you'll get that, or you'll get Vroom, which is the biggest piece of the ugliest turd I've ever seen.
Oh, that witch bicycle video game.
What the hell? Oh my goodness! Yeah,
it's one of the only Switch games I know nothing about. I kind of want to bite the bullet.
You would have bought it. Like,
well, no, I kind of wanted to do a Let's Play for Up at Noon or something, just to be like, this is the Switch game no one's talking about. You know?
And nor should that. Well, outside of localization.
thanks for helping them. Yeah,
I'm trying to get some money in the hands of the witch bicycle genre.
Yeah, it's clearly. All right, so let's move forward a little bit here. So stuff we missed last week. We did miss a story because in the interest of time, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sales was the best-selling debut for the series. Nintendo said that 459,000 downloads and package sales on launch day alone. So that's probably shipped. I don't think that's sold. But they're calling it an attach rate of 45%. Day one, debut. Not overtime day one.
Right.
500,000 on one day.
Yeah. Because the metrics they release are a little misleading a little bit, right? Like they'll find the one kind of data point that sounds awesome, like fastest selling Nintendo console in a X day period, right? Like they'll do that.
They list the previous record holder. They said the highest first day of sales in the franchise was Mario Kart Wii, with US sales of approximately 433,900 when it launched in 2008, and the Wii had a lot of buzz going with it too.
So that's really impressive because the drop was already over on the Wii console.
The Wii had been out for a few years at that point, right?
Yeah, it had been.
So this is
big install base.
This is huge.
Yeah,
like this is some.
It has the potential to do more too.
Yeah,
that's
no,
really
definitely.
Cool.
Well, I think this, like, what's cool about this game specifically is this game will have legs. Mm-hmm. I don't know about arms, but it will definitely have, like, I think people will be buying Mario Kart for a very long time.
Well, that's what happened if you remember, in the DS age, like every month, new Super Mario Brothers, new Super Mario Brothers. These games would stick around months after months, and we started calling it the Nintendo effect, where like a game doesn't drop in price because it keeps on selling like a new one.
We've seen that effect with like Gran Turismo 5, and we've seen that effect with NBA 2K, and we've seen that effect with Minecraft. I just said the mic. I apologize. Yeah, no, I led with that.
It's a Minecraft there.
I did some Minecraft there. I want to call out really quick our tournament winners. So Mitchell took first place this week with 69 points in the Battle Challenge. A lot more people participated in the IGN Battle Challenge. Thank you for joining us. Cody came in second place with 51, and Son of Odin with 47. IGN Mushroom Cup Nimrod led with 177 points.
Nice.
Followed closely by player Zachary, but he had a 4 for the first A in that name, and Skanderberg, who had 175 and 174 points respectively. And the winner of Nintendo Voice Chat's Get the Thief Invitational, Dustin 20 with 134 points. This is a podcast exclusive tournament.
Hidden little code.
Yeah, and the turnout was low. So if you're interested in playing Shine Thief with the Nintendo Voice Chat community, 32439717841 is the tournament code you need to search
love
for.
Line.
Yeah, and you can join us
again.
So let's switch over really quickly to the question block, and I have
By the way, I'm going to play Saturday again in the.
I try to play Fridays in the afternoon.
Yeah,
late, like when the tournament starts. I'm usually in there.
Okay. Like you playing from work still, or what?
Yeah, I'm usually just here, so I'm like, we can do it.
I usually jump in like Saturday morning, and then I mean, last in the race, the room was full. Yep. I mean, we were at 12 players. My daughter was able to sneak in after a while, but it was a good turnout. So thank you guys.
So we got an email from Jason Oldham. This is the question block segment. Remember that you can email us at mvc@ign.com and send your question, usually with the subject head, the question block. It just helps me find it a little easier. And please remember to keep your question condensed somewhat. Regardless, Jason says, I hate the 3DS. I love Fire Emblem Awakening and Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I hated playing them with such terrible graphics. For all its flaws, the Wii U brought HD Nintendo games, and I loved that. There was never a second playing my 3DS where I didn't wish I could play the same game in HD on my Wii U. Thought the Switch was the answer, and it might be someday, but with the 2DS XL, Nintendo seems intent on keeping this platform alive, which means to me more games I have to buy on 3DS instead of getting to play them in HD on Switch. I hope not another 3DS ever sells. That's a bit extreme. But how long do you think we will have to put up with playing good games on what is now an inferior handheld?
Well,
first of all, I think this is really, really. I get your opinion, man, and you're entitled to it. But I get also that Switch is sort of your transition point. I've moved on, but at the same time, come on, man, give the 3DS a lot of credit. Like that platform.
Do you not agree?
So
I mean, like
deep
down we all agree. No,
hold on. I mean,
I don't
really.
I think they're separate audiences, and they can be.
I agree and disagree.
Yeah.
You can't say You can't say the 3DS has terrible graphics. It doesn't. It's got a terrible screen with bad resolution, but a game like Majora's Mask is a gorgeous game. Yeah, there's a beautiful game in there. I've seen people rip like 3DS emulator screenshots that look like something that would be running on a Switch.
Yeah, Jason. Sorry, not to pile on you. I'm just
dunked
kidding.
on Jason.
No, but I mean, I think we selfishly, like we have both of these machines.
You said selfishly,
the games on the Switch will look better. We're already carrying one machine. I'm with you. I would love it if every game at least also released on the Switch, so I wouldn't have to bother with the 3DS anymore.
I don't need every game,
but there's a huge audience of people who own a 3DS, and it would be a shame if they didn't get access to some
let me
good
stop
games
you
too.
there.
Yeah.
This is your reminder, your PSA reminder that not everything Nintendo does is for you. For you. Sometimes it's for kids, like what this Hey Pikmin game so far looks like. Or sometimes it's Miitopia, which is IGN Kryptonite, but I love that game, and I'll gladly play it on that 3DS. I don't care.
I had an amazing experience with my 3DS the other day.
By the way, you're not being ungrateful. I think you're entitled to an opinion.
We're just being sassy.
We're just being sassy.
I opened up my 3D.
Sassy.
Oh, sassy. Okay.
And sexy.
When I'm sexy, you'll know it. I opened up my 3DS the other day for the first time in like 3 months, and I noticed that it had a Breath of the Wild. What are you looking at? Oh, wow.
Come on, get it with it.
Okay, let's hear it.
I noticed I had bought a Breath of the Wild theme for it like 2 weeks before that game launched because I was so excited for Breath of the Wild. So I got that theme and then closed my 3DS, and then the Switch came out and I played Breath of the Wild for 300 hours, and I came back and I was like, oh yeah, I bought a JPEG of Breath of the Wild. Good to see you, 3DS.
With sounds, yeah. No, it's really nice. No, I hear you, Jason. I think they can be separate platforms, and I think that they can use that 2DS, 3DS, which is a branding nightmare that thank God Switch got it right.
Yeah.
But I'm still happy to see, like, just give the kids some games. Let them have the Kirby, unleash the Kirby, and move on. I think to more directly answer his question, I think this is a year to a year and a half max what's left for 3DS. I don't think it hangs on for 2 full years. Now, that's completely uninformed. That's just my guess. I think that they're just not ready to move on quite yet. And let's see what that big holiday game is going to be, right? Because it has to have one. There's no world where they revised hardware and did not have a game.
Yeah, at the same time, when you get like games like, imagine Box Boy was on the Switch, like why wouldn't it make sense for them to also output a 3DS version?
I was going to say just that,
like
right?
You can still support it with kind of like the simple games.
I think different architecture, right? Like it takes work. I'm sorry.
You sort of like finish off the releases you have going for 3DS, and then you try to make them so there's sort of at the same time you have a Switch game and a 3DS game launched at the same time, right? Yeah. So that us as consumers have choices. That said, the Nintendo 3DS is one of the most successful game systems of all time. It's up there in the top 5 or 6, right?
Also one of the best. Like they got a lot of franchises on this thing. Like you can say the DS sold more, but you were happier with the games on your 3DS version because they were not touch based, or they appealed to more classic sensibilities of what you wanted.
And with these exceptionally popular platforms, we see very weird things, such as like Madden 2011 coming to PS2. Like things like this happen. So you will not see the end of the 3DS for a while. Those big third party or first party games, they're gonna trickle away and head to Switch eventually. But you're still going to get the random release on 3DS for years and years to come. That system has a lot of life left in it.
Yeah. But Jason, thank you so much for emailing us. I do definitely appreciate your question. Next one is from Brian in Ottawa, Canada.
I'm rigging the system.
Hey guys, no. Hi. I've been speculating about the upcoming online features for Switch with a friend of mine. I'm really interested in the ways that Nintendo plans on using mobile devices for online functionality. One of the ideas that we came up with was for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. What if users were able to receive notifications on our devices telling us that a friend has topped our best time, for example, in a time attack? This idea will probably go further and have functionality in other games as well, depending on the idea, of course. Yeah. Do you guys think this might be a good idea or something that Nintendo is looking into? First of all, I don't think we'll ever know what Nintendo is looking into. we can get a seance going. We can get a psychic.
Yep.
These are just things that you won't know. But I do think that it is a smart idea. We've seen Forza do it. We've seen other games try this whole competitive multiplayer approach. Yeah. So I like the concept. It's just a larger question of, I need to see their infrastructure first. I need to see what this online is before I'm ready to believe that they're going to build in these hooks to kind of keep players being competitive with each other.
Yeah, I mean, there have been games that use a mobile platform as a support device and even have kind of like some mini games that tie in with the console or PC versions. And some of them can be really clever. Like, I would love an Animal Crossing game where time continues in the game and you get an update on like whether your tree has grown or something, right? Like that kind of stuff. I love those ideas.
You really want to know if your tree grew?
But as someone, what a text.
No, but as someone, ooh, my tree.
The apples are back.
But as a Forza player, I really love the kind of competitive factor of in the game it messaging when somebody beats you. Like you really got this kind of sense of like rivalry. You went back in and you challenged that person to another race. I think that'd be great to do that on a mobile device, especially because the Switch may be in your backpack, you know, like you can hook up somewhere and say, oh yeah, I'm going to get back at you. I think that's a great idea.
I think that the mobile chat app has to have a few more hooks in it. Otherwise, it just ends up being your Nintendo version of Skype, which I think would be a mistake on Nintendo's part. I think that given that they are so driven by a very sort of, I don't know, a very different cadence in their products and in the way they communicate to you and in the way they try to be charming all the time. I think there is something to what that chat app can be and what it can do when you're not playing an online.
I hope it's more than just a support chat app because, you know, services like Snapchat and WhatsApp have become so big and, you know, they've become big by doing something special in some ways, right? Like Snapchat really capitalized on, you know, the filters and the masks you can wear and all that. Like imagine if a Nintendo messaging app functions away from the console but used like the Nintendo characters in a
like
fun
the
way.
PSN app, PlayStation Network has
and
one
gave you
like
leveling. They would be able to get a fan audience going and using the application even if they weren't playing games. I think that'd be awesome.
My favorite thing that Xbox One does with their, I think they still call it Smart Glass. I hope they don't, but I'm not sure. But the companion app on your phone, what I really enjoyed was if you were an Xbox Live subscriber, any in-game screenshot or any video was basically stored on the cloud, and you can share and tweet them when you're away from the game, which I would appreciate more because, like on my PlayStation, I take a lot of photos, and then later I want to tweet them later. I don't want to tweet them in the moment because sometimes it's just I'd rather stay invested in the game, and I forget to. And of course, that's silly social stuff, but it's still like, hey, games are social now. We want to share the weird things. Like in Prey, I'm playing Prey right now. I stumbled upon someone's D&D game, and you see the little cardboard, and you see all the little character sheets, and I'm like, this is adorable. Like this is cool stuff that I want to kind of point out. And I can't.
You know, the cloud thing's a great idea too, because it's like, you know, you go into work, you're talking to your coworker, you're out like at a bar or something, and you're like, this amazing thing happened to me in Breath of the Wild the other day. And if you don't have your Switch on you, it'd be cool to just sort of be like, oh, I have a picture of it. You pull out your phone.
Or a video of it, because it's going to have video at one point. But then it costs more. The price of what the service is can be impacted by this.
Yeah, I'm like very, I'm very like randomly reminded in my head when I'm playing Nintendo Switch. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. They announced back in January that a paid online is coming to this that has virtual console games that I believe disappear at the end of the month, but you have the option to buy them. I'm like, that's so weird. Anyway, Mario Kart. It's like just pops in my head. I'm like, what are they going to do with this? Like it's so interesting. And it's also, I think the issue so far is that their online hasn't been phenomenal.
No.
So
it's a reminder that it's dated.
Yeah, and they're going to have to pivot with all of that at some point before they start saying like cough up the bucks. Because I think what you have to give something to somebody that's really good before you take it away and make them
Four
pay
Swords
for it.
Adventures.
Right.
Well, no, Splatoon 2 is going to be the game that will upsell you on online. That is going to be when you get that beta for the chat app. That is going to be the game where they push the marketing muscle behind this is what our online service can and should look like.
Yep.
And that'll be what they'll push through the summer
That's
when
really
in the
smart,
fall they say, hey, now you got to pay for it.
Yeah, but then, I mean, like the big intriguing part to me, and like we didn't even talk about that in the E3 discussion, is like, what are these weird online games? Like these retrofitted games,
It's
right?
so
Like
strange, right?
that have online multiplayer in them. I think there's going to be something really cool there that we're not even guessing at. I'm curious to see what
I will
it is.
bet you they don't talk about it until August or September.
You think so?
I think they drag this out as long as they can because either they're figuring it out or they don't want to show up to E3, say a bunch of stuff that people are going to be upset about, potentially like not really sure of. Like they want to focus on games because they want you buying games. The services time will come. I would be surprised if at E3 they pull the trigger on the service.
Dude, those arcade archives.
Oh, no, I don't think that. I think they'll announce what a game will be.
And I guess not. Let me rephrase.
Not going to go live. Yeah,
it's not going to go live. It's going to be, hey, with Splatoon, you're getting the chat app beta and you're kicked off. But once that beta has begun, I would bet you September or August is when they finally say, okay, here are the details. Here's what the virtual console looks like. Here's all of these other things. Which that's a long time to wait.
That's like
by the
7 months of Neo Geo games. Those guys are going to be loaded. That's what I'm saying. Like they're sitting back and being like, you want retro games for like $7, a new one every week. We're doing it right now, man.
You know, there's a guy in Japan in an office at Neo Geo company right now going like, Brian bought another game.
Yeah, he goes,
They're banking on you,
He's
man.
like, drag and drop another ROM into the Switch folder.
Brian.
Okay.
Would you like to
last
chase
question,
a
and then
tomato?
we're gonna bail. This one comes from good friend of the show, Charles Gadsden, who says, "I don't think we answered this last week, but I meant to bring it up. Hello, NVC. I bring a cube-shaped query before you." I'm not sure what that means. Why is the Nintendo Switch's outlook more positive and much better received than its predecessors, the Wii U, in its first 2 months on the market? To put your thinking caps on a little tighter, it would be nice if each one of you named only one reason. True, there are a variety of reasons, but if you had to narrow it down to a classic, bona fide IGN list, what would it look like? He has top 4 reasons here. We only have 3 people today, so you're getting top 3. Thanks, and have a great day.
Can I go first?
Yep.
I want
You go first.
No, I've been going first.
You're the host.
No,
You've earned this.
No. It's fine. Go.
Jose,
Please.
do it. Okay. Number 3, we'll count back to you.
Woo!
It's incredibly easy to explain. I feel like the Wii U was not. I still don't know what the Wii U was. The Wii U's vision was that you could walk anywhere in your house and it would work. And it stopped working 7 feet away from my Wii U for me. It was clunky and strange. Did it need motion controllers? Did it need Wii controllers? It was slow. The Switch just works. You put it in front of somebody, you put it in someone's hands, you can explain it to them in seconds.
And the Wii U came with a caveat where you're like, look, you can use this controller and play games on it. And then it's like, oh yeah, can you take it upstairs? No. Right? Like you had to explain everything. This device, you're absolutely right. You see it docked, you take it out, you're like, that's like magic. That's so cool. Like it's, technically not that advanced. Like an iPad dock would
The commercial had no words in it. It just played a song and people were like, and you got it.
The thing that really hurt Wii U most of all, I don't think, was the graphics tech per se. It was that the machine was slow. Yeah. It was that every transition was a wait. Miiverse, anything is
the original menus.
Yeah, turning on the system when it came out. It wasn't until that June 2014 update where it was like, oh, the gamepad doesn't really go to sleep and it has a fast turn on mode now. Wasn't until then that they figured out how to get that machine to boot up faster.
You couldn't even leave the TV off and do stuff on the gamepad. Remember, because like your menus were like convoluted and had to be used in 2 places.
Yeah, and they also put 3DS, DS games on it, and I feel like that was even more confusing because if you wanted them both on one screen, you had this weird overlay you had to deal with, or you had like, here's an oversized screen, here's a small size screen, or there's one up there and there's one down here, and you're gonna figure this out, or you can reverse. I don't know if you can reverse the order, but it was just confusing. That was That was the biggest problem.
So I got 2 things. I'll go with whatever.
Next?
I'll go with whatever you don't have.
Look at this.
Should I pick one?
GM privilege.
No, I'll go next.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
But remember, last is first. We're counting back to 1.
Yeah.
You get to say mine.
You get to
number
be
two.
number 1.
Number 2. It launched with the most talked about game of the year. It launched with Breath of the Wild. I could have picked a different one.
Keep going.
It launched with Breath of the Wild, which had already a lot of buzz around it last year. And then when it hit, it was like everybody who played it loved it and talked about it. And everybody had, and I get to use this word now, everybody had a story to tell about their game and where they are in the world. And like, oh my God, you didn't do that or you didn't see that yet. And so it became this kind of like viral phenomenon as people started to talk about it. Certainly one of the most covered Nintendo games, in the first month of its release on social platforms, on YouTube and so forth. And so they had a must-have game at launch. Now, yes, it was also on the other machine, but nobody talked about that.
I was going to play a game while you kept going. No?
Oh, yeah. What do you got?
Okay. So mine was going to be experience. The idea that it kind of ties a little closer to yours, I think, but just the concept that the transition between playing at home and playing on the go was entirely seamless. And we were concerned about that, right? When you first see them pull it out of the dock in the very first reveal, you said to yourself, can it really be that easy? Or when they were just yanking off controllers and putting them in other controllers or handing them to friends, no sign of the Joy-Con strap inside, and we were still worried about, well, this is too small. Didn't matter. They had a solution for that too. Mm-hmm. Like there were so many things that when you saw it, you were just like, wow, experience-wise, this is very fast, very efficient. It is straight and to the point. So it does brush up, I think, with yours about just explaining its elegance and just how elegantly they nailed the concept.
No, you're totally right.
But I think that those were the things that the minute we saw them, we found it hard to believe because
we doubted it.
Was not those things. It was everything but those things.
Well, seeing it in handheld mode in that original trailer, you're like, I bet you the battery's 45 minutes long. It gets really hot. The screen's probably crappy and low resolution, just like it was in the Wii U. Yep. Seeing the Joy-Cons come off, you're like, I'll never play with those. They're tiny. It doesn't make any sense. I use my Switch everywhere now. I fly with it. I told the story a couple weeks ago. My wife and I sitting next to each other on a plane. I popped off the Joy-Cons. We played Puyo Tetris with each other for like 2 hours. We switched over to Mario Kart. I put on the Joy-Con straps. We were power sliding and stuff like that. They work. They're not the best controllers in the world, but on a damn airplane, it works, or it is a park or a bar, wherever you are.
It is the world's first multiplayer portable console. Yeah. Like there is nothing like it. You could not do this with a 3DS. You certainly don't do it with an iPad.
No.
It is something, there are a few examples of those things, but every and almost any game on this has the potential to just go, let's go.
Yeah, and then that intuitive design and that kind of the ease of understanding the system also is backed up by the branding. Right, like if you think about it, when you hear the name Switch and you see the design of the machine, it instantly sticks with you. You understand why it's called Switch. I still don't know why the Wii U is called Wii U.
What about new Nintendo 2DS XL?
No, but like, I mean,
rolls right off the tongue.
Think about it. Like Wii U sounded like some marketing BS somebody came up with, and then it came at a time which Nintendo failed to predict that the Wii brand was getting tarnished. It was not the hot thing anymore. With a kind of like with an influencer consumer, it was still hot with the mainstream.
Yeah. Well, and they had good intentions, right? They're like, oh, your old Wii controllers work. Everything will be part of the system. Everything old. It's backwards compatible. We want to accept you into and help you transition to the new thing.
The Wii University.
Whereas this completely cut the cord and said and we were worried about that. We were saying to ourselves, this is the first time with a home console Nintendo has not with a home console, with anything that's even slightly portable, where Nintendo said, last category, who cares?
By the way, how funny is it that nobody talks about discs anymore? That was it's not going to use discs. That was the big shocker, right?
No, like, but there is still the sticker shock,
you don't think about it anymore.
But there is still the sticker shock reaction of $10 more for Switch games.
That's true, but that's going away, right? We just saw, one of the news stories was a game.
Rhyme is now digitally the same price everywhere, and at retail, $10 more. Yeah. And I think that the slight outrage over it is justified, but it's also, hey guys, these are cartridges. Like, of course, there's going to be a cost tied to them. I'm not forgiving or exonerating Nintendo of any blame from that, but this is the format they chose, and I don't think they were wrong for doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think you guys, we covered this to death during this era. We tried every single week to find things we loved about the Wii U during the dark ages of Nintendo Voice Chat. But I think ultimately, like, we tried, man.
Wii U in review.
Yeah. We're like, we went from the Wii, which everyone kind of understood. You held the controller. It was multiplayer. It brought people together, right? And the Wii U, that you meant you were by yourself with this tablet. And they took this thing it really defied one of the core tenets of Nintendo, which is getting people together to play video games. And they got to keep that, like, you have that isolated handheld thing, and they got to keep that.
That's right. Nintendo Land tried, right? Like there were a couple of games that really tried.
But think about the control.
But it didn't look like it. Yeah.
Think about the way you controlled Nintendo Land.
Yeah.
Think about that. Do you remember? It was 25 different ways.
It was very
one game
complicated.
used this, one
It's a
game
fun
used
party
this.
game, though.
Totally. And I enjoyed it. I'm glad it was there.
Let me
but-
be the Samus ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fight over that. No, I agree with all of that. And I think that the last thing I would say about this machine is that I think it surprised everyone who, in this age of super sophisticated ways to play games, including this very expensive device in your pocket, which you're paying a premium for, but it is a premium quality device, that Nintendo is able to sort of, I don't want to say cobble together because it sounds sort of reductive, but they are able to put together something that on the surface isn't outputting in 4K,
Right.
isn't pushing like the most RAM of any cartridge system, but is able to still satisfy portable expectations and in a way that had never been done before. To me, and this might be a bit hyperbole to some, and you guys can shoot me down on this if you want, but it does remind me of a little bit of the transition when, remember we had flip-top cell phones? And remember they lasted a week.
Yeah.
And they didn't do much else, but they did one thing really well. They had some crappy games on them, maybe Bejeweled or something like that. But
You had
dealt with
Bejeweled?
it. I think they did.
You know what game I had on my first cell phone?
Snake.
Falling Numbers.
Okay.
You know what Falling Numbers was? That was a game where numbers fell and you had to type in the numbers. That was the whole game.
Yep.
Like the fact that I can bring Zelda anywhere now is like,
See, that's why
suck at Falling
That's why
Numbers.
you're so smart today.
There it is.
I know.
There it is.
I knew about those numbers.
But
you
when
didn't
I
do
think
math.
You grind the brain.
You didn't do math in the game. You just hit the same
just hit
number.
the number.
It was like 3, 4.
Nice. But when I think about the transition after iPhone came out, and granted it was incredibly expensive,
Yep.
It didn't have an app store, but it was still a strong enough phone experience, unlike anything you'd done. And then phase 2, of course, was the app store and the dominance and all of the things that came with that. To me, that is the type of transition this machine seems to be setting up. Now, whether or not it ends up going as far as these guys did with this, I don't know if I would go that far or that crazy, but I would say that this is disruptive in a way that people didn't expect it to be.
Yes.
No one expected it to do what it ended up doing so well.
What do you think? What are you going to say when Sony
it hype, by the
reveals
way? Is that crazy?
the PlayStation Go at the E3 event, where they
I'm all
have a
for it.
redesigned PS3 that has removable
Sure.
controllers? and you can
Yeah,
pick what-
sure. Bring it on. This is an amazing concept. I hope everyone steals it.
Do you think anybody's going to dare?
I think it's risky.
Because motion controls got ganked
Yeah.
and done so much that everybody was bored with it.
Yeah.
The
Second screen got yanked,
Yeah.
and then got done so much and marketed so heavily that people said, "Don't tell me what to do on my second screen. I'm going back to YouTube."
And
right?
I don't need Wikipedia, an encyclopedia to this game to tell me what this game is. I can
right.
look at lore and all that other stuff in my spare time. I don't need that.
What Sony should do if they want to rip off the Switch is do what they did with the Move controllers. You just take the same exact thing and you put a glowing ball on top of it.
Wow.
Just like a clown nose on top.
around it.
The PlayStation Move.
Never get hit by a
I
car
don't think
again.
they will
In the
until
dark.
they see this thing take off really well. Like I just don't think anyone is immediately looking at the concept. Although I think there was, I don't know if that was actually ended up being true, something Sony related.
The patent.
But,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, no, they did. I mean, everybody's kind of thought about the concept, I think. I'm sure if you dig through patents or, talk to any of these, the console makers, they thought about it.
Ooh, okay.
Back to the Sega age, probably, where it
yeah.
just wasn't feasible,
All right. Well, we're out of time. So we've got to wrap. We went a bit over today. I apologize to you both if you have places to be.
Cool.
Okay, I'm glad you're cool. Thank you for watching and listening to Nintendo Voice Chat. We're a weekly show on IGN. And remember, you can watch us in a bunch of places. You can see us on IGN.com. You can see us on YouTube.com/Nintendo Voice Chat. Make sure you subscribe there or to YouTube.com/IGN. Of course, we love to keep you up to date on everything we're making and everything we're doing. And also, leave us comments. Send us an email, nvc@ign.com. Let us know what you think of the show or send us questions for the question block. Finally, you can find us on Twitter. You can find Brian Altano at.
Agent Bizzle.
You can find Per Schneider at.
IGN.
You can find myself, Jose_Otero. Thank you so much for watching and for listening and for sticking around for an hour and 20 minutes. I'm sorry. We'll see you next week with more Nintendo Voice Chat.
Get the thief.
Nice.